What gets you through on those days that are a little bit more challenging for you?
Well, what I have to do is I have to just drop everything and just be by myself.
Most Hollywood marriages don't survive fame. Most don't survive addiction. And almost none survive a life-altering diagnosis that changes everything overnight. But Tracy Pollan didn't just survive all three. She leaned in. After nearly 4 decades together, she finally broke down exactly what has kept this marriage going. And honestly, the truth is more powerful than any rumor you've ever heard. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most quietly extraordinary love stories Hollywood has ever produced. Two very different people from two very different worlds. Before there was a love story, there was a contrast. Michael J. Fox and Tracy Pollan came from completely different worlds, and understanding that gap is essential to understanding why what they built together is so remarkable. Tracy Jo Pollan was born on June 22, 1960, on Long Island, New York. She grew up in Woodbury, the daughter of a prominent New York family. She was raised in a Jewish household, surrounded by culture, education, and stability. From an early age, she showed a natural pull toward the performing arts, eventually making her way to New York City to pursue acting through theater. She was thoughtful, grounded, and had a clarity about who she was that was uncommon for someone so young in the entertainment industry. Michael Andrew Fox, on the other hand, was born on June 9, 1961 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. He came from a military family, which meant constant relocation throughout his childhood. He dropped out of high school at 18 and moved from Vancouver to Los Angeles with little money and enormous ambition, chasing a dream that most people told him was unrealistic. He hustled for auditions until family ties changed everything. By the time Tracy walked onto the set of Family Ties in 1985, Michael was already a star. Back to the Future had just come out that same summer, and Michael J. Fox was one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. He had a Mercedes, a Ferrari, a Range Rover, and a calendar full of movie offers. He was, as he later described himself, a boy prince. Tracy was cast as Ellen Reed, Alex Keaton's love interest, for the show's 4th season. Off-screen, she wasn't particularly impressed with the biggest star on set. She later recalled thinking Michael was kind of full of himself. Here was one of the most famous men in America, and Tracy Pollan's primary reaction was, "I'm not buying it." But then something shifted. They started working together properly, and within 2 weeks, Tracy said she got a completely different impression. The cockiness melted away into someone genuinely funny, surprisingly self-aware, and far more intelligent than the celebrity persona suggested. From the beginning, she later told Oprah, "I loved his sense of humor and that brain of his. He's so smart." Still, nothing romantic happened. Tracy was in a relationship with Kevin Bacon, and she kept things entirely professional. After her season on Family Ties wrapped, she moved on to other projects. For a while, it looked like their story would begin and end on a television set in the mid-1980s. But if Tracy wasn't even impressed by him the first time they met, what was it about their second encounter that changed absolutely everything? The second chance that changed everything. Fate, or timing, or whatever you want to call it, had other plans. In 1987, both Michael and Tracy were cast in Bright Lights, Big City, a drama about a young man spiraling through New York's nightlife. By this point, Tracy and Kevin Bacon had ended their relationship. She was single. Michael noticed almost immediately. They spent real time together on set. They talked, they laughed, and Michael asked her out. What followed was a courtship that moved quickly but felt completely right to both of them. Michael has described it as the kind of connection where you stop performing and start just being. For a man who had spent years playing characters for a living and presenting a carefully managed version of himself to the public, that feeling was something entirely new. He proposed on December 26, 1987, the day after Christmas. He later said the hardest part wasn't the proposal itself, because he wasn't really worried she'd say no. The hardest part was figuring out the timing and making sure nobody found out beforehand. They wanted something private, something that belonged to them before it belonged to the world. They married on July 16, 1988, in an outdoor interfaith ceremony at West Mountain Inn in Vermont. It was intimate by Hollywood standards, attended by friends including Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan, and Woody Harrelson. The ceremony blended Episcopalian and Jewish traditions, a quiet reflection of who they each were, and a signal of the respect for each other's individuality that would come to define everything that followed. Michael was 26. Tracy was 28. Neither of them had any idea what was coming. They were married. They were happy. They were building a life together. So what happened next that nearly tore all of it apart before it had barely begun? The diagnosis that could have ended everything. The early years of their marriage were, by most accounts, genuinely happy. They were building something together, a home, a family, a shared life. Their son Sam was born in May 1989. Michael's career was still at full throttle. On the surface, everything looked exactly the way success was supposed to look. Then, in 1991, while filming Doc Hollywood in Florida, Michael noticed something that stopped him cold. A slight involuntary twitch in his left pinky finger. He was 29 years old. He assumed it was nothing, a pinched nerve, maybe an injury he hadn't noticed. But it didn't go away. And then the tremors spread. The diagnosis came back. Early onset Parkinson's disease. A degenerative neurological condition with no cure. One that would progressively affect his motor function, his speech, and eventually his ability to do the one thing that had defined his entire life. He came home and told Tracy the same day. What Michael describes about that moment is not what most people would expect. There was no panic from Tracy. No crying, no drawn-out conversation about what this meant for their future. She didn't flinch. She reminded him of the vows they had made, in sickness and in health. She was going to go through it with him. Full stop. Years later, he reached for a metaphor to describe how she made him feel. Tracy was just like, "You've got a stone in your shoe. We'll do what we can until you can get it out. In the meantime, if you limp with the stone, that's all right. You can hold my hand, and we'll get over that." That is not a small thing. That is someone choosing, in real time, to absorb devastating news and immediately redirect it into something manageable. Not denial, practical, grounded love. Michael kept the diagnosis entirely secret for 7 years. He continued acting, doing press, winning awards, while quietly managing a condition that was slowly progressing. The weight of that secrecy, carried across nearly a decade, was enormous. Tracy didn't flinch when he told her, but what nobody was talking about was what was happening behind closed doors, and it had nothing to do with Parkinson's. The battle nobody knew was happening. Here's the part of the story that doesn't get told often enough, and it matters enormously to understanding who Tracy Pollan is and what this marriage actually cost her. Michael's initial response to the Parkinson's diagnosis wasn't courage. He has been completely honest about that. In a raw interview with Howard Stern, he admitted that after the diagnosis, he started drinking heavily, and not the social, Hollywood party kind of drinking he had done before. He was drinking alone, every day, using alcohol to numb something he didn't know how to face. He was performing normalcy in public while privately coming undone. The man whom millions of people saw as charming and indestructible was sitting alone with a glass in his hand, trying to outrun a diagnosis that wasn't going anywhere. Tracy saw all of it, and at some point, she decided that saying nothing wasn't the same as being supportive. She confronted him. She looked at him and asked a question that, by his own account, cracked everything open. Is this what you want? This is what you want to be? That's not a gentle question. It's a challenge delivered with love, but a challenge nonetheless. And it worked. Michael went to Alcoholics Anonymous. He started therapy. He stopped trying to outrun Parkinson's and started learning to live alongside it. He has credited Tracy fully for pulling him back from that edge. She loved him enough to hold up a mirror, even when it was uncomfortable. Meanwhile, their twin daughters, Aquina and Skylar, were born in February 1995, and their fourth child, Esme, arrived in November 2001. Tracy spent a decade managing an expanding family while supporting a husband navigating addiction recovery and a secret illness almost entirely without public acknowledgement. Michael got sober, he got help, he went public with the diagnosis. But going public didn't just change his life. It launched something neither of them ever expected to build. Going public and building something bigger together. In 1998, after undergoing brain surgery to help manage his tremors, Michael made the decision to go public with his Parkinson's diagnosis. He had kept the secret for 7 years. The announcement landed like a shockwave. Fans who had grown up watching him as Marty McFly and Alex Keaton were stunned. In January 2000, Michael left Spin City after 100 episodes and launched the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. He walked away from a career that was still, by any measure, at the top of its game, and redirected everything into something bigger than himself. Today, that foundation is the largest nonprofit funder of Parkinson's research in the world. It has raised hundreds of millions of dollars and fundamentally accelerated the pace of research into a disease that affects millions globally. And Tracy is not a passive bystander to any of it. She sits on the foundation's board. She has spoken publicly about the impact of Parkinson's on families and caregivers in ways that go far beyond a red carpet appearance. This was never just Michael's mission, it became theirs. At the Foundation's annual gala, Tracy was honest about the difficulty of living alongside Parkinson's. It's very difficult for the family, for the caregivers, and obviously for the patient, she said. But she pointed directly at Michael for making it manageable. A lot of my adjustment has been dictated by Michael's point of view. He's so relaxed and so accepting of where he is, and that makes it easier for me, the kids, and everyone around him. The foundation was growing, the family was growing, but underneath all of that, Michael said something in an interview that stopped people cold, and most of them completely misunderstood it. The separate lives secret that explains everything. This is the part that surprised a lot of people when Michael first said it out loud. During a candid interview on CBS Mornings, he made a statement that could easily be misread if you weren't paying close attention. He said, "I love Tracy. She's an amazing person, but she has a life separate from me having Parkinson's. Separate and apart from me being Alex Keaton or Marty McFly. She's a person." Taken out of context, that sounds like a warning sign. Distance in a marriage that has been through this much. But listen carefully, and what you actually hear is the opposite. It's Michael describing one of the core reasons they've made it this far. Tracy Pollan has never allowed herself to be absorbed into the role of caregiver. She maintained her own identity, her own friendships, her own sense of self as someone who exists independently of her husband's illness and his celebrity. She didn't become Michael J. Fox's wife, managing his Parkinson's. She remained Tracy Pollan, a complete person with her own life. She knew when to step in and when to step back, when presence was what the moment required, and when space was more important. She was not sentimental or performative about the sacrifice. She was practical and intentional about it. And that combination, showing up fully when it matters while maintaining yourself in between, is genuinely difficult to sustain across decades. Michael has spoken about the contrast in their dispositions as well. Tracy, by her own admission, is more naturally inclined to worry about the future. Michael is the opposite, focused on the present, accepting of what is. In an interview with People, Tracy said, "His optimistic worldview about everything is just so powerful. Michael doesn't worry about the future. I'm completely the opposite." Over time, his approach has shaped hers. That mutual influence, where each person genuinely shifts the other, is what long marriages are actually built on. So they had the independence figured out. They had the foundation. They had the family. But when Tracy was finally asked point blank, what is the actual secret to this marriage? What did she say? What Tracy finally revealed. At a certain point in long relationships, the truths stop sounding dramatic. They get quieter and more specific. And that's exactly what happened when Tracy finally laid out, across multiple interviews and public appearances, what she believes has actually held this marriage together. No publicist, no carefully managed narrative. Just a woman who has lived it, saying exactly what she found to be true. At the Michael J. Fox Foundation Gala, she was asked about the secret to nearly 4 decades of marriage. She didn't reach for something romantic or cinematic. She said, "We just take it one day at a time, and it's worked." That philosophy sounds almost too simple to matter, but simplicity is exactly what made it sustainable. They never tried to solve the next 10 years all at once. Instead, they focused on getting through today, then tomorrow, trusting that thousands of ordinary, faithful decisions would eventually become an extraordinary marriage. In interviews with People magazine, she has returned again and again to the same theme: listening, real listening, not waiting to speak, not managing, not navigating, actually hearing the other person. "I think we really listen to each other. We are there for each other when we need each other." Michael has echoed that back, saying that Tracy gives their family everything it needs, and that any good that comes from their family originates with her. Their eldest son, Sam, recently married Molly Milstein, and when Tracy was asked what advice she gave him, the answer was the same one she's been living by for almost 40 years. Take it one day at a time. That's not a platitude when it comes out of someone who has actually done it through early onset Parkinson's, through addiction recovery, through the relentless public glare that attaches to fame at that level, and through the ordinary, grinding difficulties that any marriage accumulates over time. When Tracy says it, it means something because she has earned the right to say it. At the 2026 Actor Awards, Michael made a surprise appearance that brought the room to its feet. He gave a speech reflecting on his career, his gratitude, and the people who made everything possible. And when he spoke about Tracy, he called her his greatest gift. He told the audience that he met her on Family Ties, and that she gave him 4 gifts: their children Sam, Aquina, Skylar, and Esme. And then, with the kind of humor that has always defined how he carries even the hardest things, he added, "Sometimes I like to remind them, if it weren't for acting, they wouldn't be here." For their 36th anniversary, he posted a photo with the caption, "Here's to a lifetime of love with the love of a lifetime." Tracy replied, "Same spot, different year. We haven't changed a bit. That's the whole story, right there in 2 sentences. Same spot, different year, still choosing each other." And after everything they have been through, the fame, the diagnosis, the years of secrecy, the battles fought behind closed doors, the fact that it comes down to something that simple is perhaps the most powerful thing about it. What Michael J. Fox and Tracy Pollan have built is not a fairy tale. It is something harder and more real and, in the end, far more impressive than a fairy tale. It is a marriage that was tested by the vertigo of sudden fame, by a diagnosis that would have broken most people, by years of secrecy and the strain that comes with it, by addiction, by public life, by the slow physical toll of a degenerative disease, and it held. It held because 2 people kept making the same decision over and over again, across nearly 4 decades, to listen, to show up, to give each other space to remain whole, and to take it one day at a time. Tracy didn't reveal a scandal. She didn't expose a crack in the foundation or a secret that changed the story. What she revealed is something that's actually harder to hold on to than any dramatic twist: steadiness, commitment that doesn't perform itself, love that shows up quietly, consistently, and without needing an audience. If this story hits differently than you expected, that's the point. The real ones always do. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment below telling us which celebrity couple you think has one of the most underrated love stories in Hollywood. We read every single one.